Welcome to Never Rewrites. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to revisit the metaphor of moving houses is similar to a rewrite. And it's not that moving houses is similar per se. The idea is when you move, you have to pack up all your stuff, move it to a new place, and unpack it. And so this is similar to what you do in a rewrite where you have to get everything you've got to a new system and get it all working. And that's the fundamental thing. And what I have learned from my many moves over the years is it all sounds great. And you start packing and you're doing everything nice and neat and organized and everything's packed well. And then you start running out of time and you start throwing, packing less neat and nicely. And then by the end, you are throwing everything into a box and you don't even know if you care about this stuff or look at it. You just throw it in a box. Then you pay movers. The movers move it, or you use your friends, I guess, depending upon where you are. You move it, you get to the other side, you unpack it, and then there's all these boxes full of stuff, and you look at it, and you're like, I don't even care about this. Like, I'm just throwing it away. And this, to me, is very much like a rewrite where you start off, you're being very judicious, you're being careful, and by the end, you're just doing everything to get it done. And then on the other end, you now have to figure out, do you actually care or want any of this stuff?
I'm wondering though, 'cause, I know like a lot of times people say the last 20% is 80% of the work
Mm-hmm.
for things, not necessarily rewrites. But I'm wondering, I know in a lot of cases for the rewrites, you would port over what you think is everything you need, and suddenly you realized towards the end of the project, oh, this doesn't cover some use case or some customer or something that we thought we didn't need, but oh, now it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think how it kind of disconnects a little bit from the metaphor is discovering you don't need it. I feel like you discover you do need it, if anything. But it is still the scramble of, oh, there's still some features slash boxes
Yeah.
that have not yet been moved over, so we have to hurriedly move them over.
Well, I posit to you, in broad strokes, hey, I'm going to go through my kitchen and I'm going to throw everything in a box because it's all my kitchen stuff. But do you need
Hmm.
some of that kitchen stuff? Like, I know there's stuff in my kitchen that I have not used in
Yeah.
years. And I don't, if I moved, I wouldn't need to move that packet. I wouldn't need to pack it, wouldn't need to spend the effort packing it, wouldn't need to move it, wouldn't need to unpack it. And if I got to my new place and I didn't have a spot for it, I would probably throw it away.
Yeah. It's the just in case. If you don't know that you do, you don't know that you don't need it.
Well, you don't know what you
So
have.
you'd rather just keep it and carry it with you just in case, or like the same thing with porting features over. If you're
Right. Well, I'm saying that when the time crunch comes, you get the scramble of you start off like packing plates is a really slow process because they're fragile.
okay,
As you are, but packing a drawer full of silverware is easy. You open it, you dump it into a box. Silverware is not fragile.
hmm
When you start off, you've got all these time-consuming things, but by the end, you're into the drawers, and you've got these knick-knack drawers. You've got a drawer full of spatulas and a drawer full of these, like,
yeah,
and you're going to end up dumping them in a box. That's just how it goes. And then you get to the other side, and now you have to unwrap it, unbox it, and decide where it goes. And now is when you're going to consider this thing, because now you have to consider where it goes in the new place. And this is when
hmm
you realize that you didn't need to pack it in the first place. It should have just gone to trash or Goodwill or whatever. No metaphor is perfect. But
right.
so now I posit to you, in this new age we are in, how would AI change this metaphor? Right? If you can pack and unpack the stuff, does that change anything? Like if AI can pack all the stuff for you, you've got robot packers.
hmm
And I think it lowers the cost of packing up stuff that you don't need, but it increases the cost on the other side because the robot doesn't know where the stuff goes in your new house because you don't know where the stuff goes in your new house.
Maybe I guess there's a couple different threads that are
Yeah.
still going from the metaphor, I guess.
All right, go for the
Um,
metaphor. Pull a thread.
uh, well, one again, I still think that like the main disconnect is like the last features, instead of it
Mm-hmm.
being the ones that you don't care about and you throw it into a box. In rewrites, those tend to be the most important ones. People just forget, oh, we can't even swap over because those last little things we didn't consider as we didn't even notice them until we went, oh, this is the screw that goes to that very important
Mm,
thing. you
yeah,
know,
right. It's
so it's
small, but
it's
it's
not
important.
throwawayable. It's very important. Yeah, I think
Mm,
that's the main disconnect. But regardless, the cost, of porting it over is an interesting, different question because AI can help understand the context better than humans can. So that thing where you forgot to port that feature over
mm-hmm.
until the last minute, in the new age of AI, it can usually catch those things. It can catch that, oh, a customer ID is hard coded here. That's a thing we have to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can scatter a bunch of access points, like logs, where you can see if that particular line of code was hit, and then funnel all of that into one big um, function, essentially, to compare and see, should we port it over, right? So it almost
Right.
can self filter before you even pack. So even before you get to the last process, when you're getting ready to pack, you can say, analyze my whole house and tell me what things I haven't used in 7 years and
Yeah, find
separate
my
that from
junk
the
for
ones I
me.
have.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And then you pack up what you need, and then you can maybe still want to bring some stuff with you just in case, because people want to hoard it because they haven't used it in a long time. Doesn't mean it's not useful. It might be just a
Right.
really old part of the website that whenever one of your oldest clients triggers this thing once a year, they expect it to work. Even if you haven't used it in a year, it's still this old thing you want to port over.
Right. It's
But
that
I think it kind
contact
of does
us
change the
page
equation.
there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to make a joke about the contact us page where people will ask you, please, I would love to hire you. And you want that to work, but also nobody's going to click on it.
Right. Contact us.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it makes, I think it helps uh, separate the junk from the rest
Mm-hmm.
of what you need. But it's also just a good first pass to kind of, like, whenever you think about commit history, if we go back to the programming realm, um, I might not read a commit history that goes back 8 years. And an issue a lot of times with rewrites is
Mm-hmm.
when people want to rewrite functionality and they go, oh, I could do it better than the dumb programmer that was before. That person's not there to defend themselves or there to explain themselves for why it works the way it works. Whereas pro AI, if you assuming you have decent commit messages or it can compare
That's a big
changes,
assumption.
it's a big assumption, but it could also go back through and do diffs if it sees,
Even
like,
diffs, yeah.
if you see the history of a particular component rather than just commits in general, then it can go through and see diffs and compare. So before you make a change, if you want to do something like, why would this ever work this way? And you want to change it, it could scan back through 8 years or even before people were there that, your contemporaries were there, and tell you the history of it. So that context, I think, was lost before
Mm.
because people couldn't do that as easily on every single little component. Whereas now you can have like a site-wide search and it can help self-filter. Oh, actually, that's not junk. You thought it was junk. We should actually pack that because of this reason where it's historically relevant to keep this thing over. So I
This
think it does
odd
help
thing
out
that
a
you
little
don't
bit.
understand goes to this thing.
Right. Imagine if you have a box of different types of screws and tools, and you see one really long, brass screw, and you're like, oh, I remember this went somewhere, and it knows where. I mean, you don't have to
Yeah.
spend all the time, or just toss it, thinking I don't need that. And then like 2 years later, you go, I threw away that screw. That's the moment you needed it.
Yep.
So it does a
Right.
good job
That's
there.
where the
Yeah.
FOMO kicks in, and you pack the screw and you move because you don't know if you need it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think I'll use that, or the thing you've never used, or the book you've never gotten around to reading. The moment you're asked, do I throw this away or donate it? Then you go, I think I will eventually get around to reading this. And thus another 10 years goes by.
I defend the books because sometimes you read them and also they're small. But I definitely have had junk drawers full of like power adapters that have become
Yes.
separated
Oh,
from the
yeah.
thing that they, it's let kids This is a thing that used to happen is you would have DC9 power adapters and there's like 50 of them. You think
Right.
USB A, B, and C is bad? You should try a 9-volt power adapter from the 80s. There's literally 30 formats and probably more. And they all end up in a box. You're like, okay, I've got this thing and it's got a round hole and it takes DC9 and which one of these is
Yep.
the cable, and if you're wrong you burn it out.
So I think this is also why it's relevant in the programming
Mm-hmm.
realm too, because finding stuff like that, although it might seem silly, um, I worked with a somebody about like 2 months ago, and they were using AI to clean up the code base. Um, and they were being very careful about it because they were like worried about this is actually before one of the recent Claude models that was really good at this. So it was like kind of still hallucinated a bit more and was kind of
Mm.
you still wanted to trust it, not wanted to trust it as much. So they ended up doing something similar to what I was talking about, where they just threw in a bunch of blogging all over the place temporarily to see what they knew the high traffic ones were meant to be kept, but there's a lot of other not just files that never seem to be hit, but functions within files that were hit that never seem to be hit,
Mm.
and they wanted to filter all them out. And there's like a lot of JavaScript assets in the front end that like they were just like huge packages, but then they couldn't find anywhere that they were actually being included. And so it was like, is this just something someone downloaded years ago?
Yeah.
And after doing a ton of cleanup and testing, iteration after iteration, he'd like clean up in pieces to make sure that it was enough to roll back or target certain
Wise.
sections of the site too.
Yeah.
Uh, Ended up saving about 2.3 gigabytes of code data
Oh wow.
from just deleting unused things that had accumulated on this code base over like 16 or 17 years. Just
Mm-hmm.
dead code, dead assets. And that matters when you're deploying stuff quickly
Mm-hmm.
in your pipelines. So the less you have to deploy, the faster you deploy it. So it was a pretty substantial cleanup. So I would say even still, like it's funny to talk about the moving metaphor and think about
Mm-hmm.
things you want to box up, but like imagine if half of the things that you own were never used, not just a handful, right? And it can handle that and make sure you're not needlessly paying for boxing and moving costs for things that you don't ever use.
Yeah, I've been using AI for cleanup and looking at what it's doing. It's doing the grep, it's doing the shell commands. I'm like, yep, that's what I would do, but I don't want to look at the answers and then compare them to other things and like go do all that for me.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's not 100% correct, but that's okay because I filtered out the false positives. There were string collisions.
Hmm.
This string was also used here as this string, and so it thought it was no longer in use. And I'm like, clean it all up, or not clean it all up, but like, here's the list of things. Yes, clean this one.
Yeah.
No, clean that one. And the value was in the research, in the looking at it and saying, do I want this?
Right.
And it wasn't in the code. The code was trivial.
So
Man,
I
we're
guess it's
getting off
still a little
topic.
bit like
I was saying we're off topic, but keep going.
no, I'm still on topic. I was just going to say I guess it's still like a rewrite is still like a move in that case. There's just a little couple little things here. We like coming up with metaphors on the show,
We do.
so they're not always perfect, but it is I think a very shared experience that people do tend to get to the last bit and throw everything in
Mm-hmm.
there and just I think the closer metaphor for that is just like trying to call the project done. What can
Mm-hmm.
we say? Oh, technically, there's 5 tickets. That's redundant, yeah, but that one over here, we can just loop that in and say that's done. Mark done. Mark done. Mark done. That's your last bit of cleanup that you're trying to carry with you over to the new thing.
Yeah, I just watched the Chernobyl miniseries from HBO,
Oh, so good.
and when you get to the end, you learn that the reason that they blew up the nuclear power plant was they were trying to run a safety test that they had said they'd run so that they could get their bonuses for getting the power plant on time, open on time, but they had actually skipped, and they were trying to run it now on the down low, and that's why they were doing the things that resulted in the nuclear power plant exploding.
That's it's kind of haunting, actually. That sucks.
Yeah. But
All
anyway,
right.
yeah. So I think coming back to it, AI is not going to help you with the I didn't leave enough time to pack and it takes a long time to unpack parts of the problem, but it might help you look at objects and decide whether or not you want to keep them if they're useful faster.
Hmm.
Right? In
Yeah.
theory, you could have AI scan everything in your house and give you a pretty good idea of what you don't need to move.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to that topic that you found on this. There was a particular author on Blue Sky that was talking about don't rewrite, rebuild, and we were like
Mm,
kind of joking about like the terminology of rewrite and rebuild and refactor and like trying to
right.
get it squared away. But in this case, he was essentially saying like find out what works and then build a new thing. And you don't necessarily rebuild what you've got. Build the things that matter going forward. Build the new system. So that kind of it would help in that flow. I think you don't have to necessarily port over every feature when you rewrite something, right? Even if you do want to, we're saying not to, But if you are in the new age of AI, you don't necessarily have to port everything over. Um, you can just port over all the features like the MVP that actually works, the pieces of it that you actually care about, and leave the rest behind because it's just unused.
Yeah, that sounds great. Uh, should we leave it there?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.